Welcome to the Middle School Cafe podcast, where we're serving up fresh strategies and solutions for ELA teachers just like you. Join us as we explore proven methods to bridge the achievement gap and help every student reach their full potential. Whether you're a veteran teacher or just starting out, grab a cup of coffee and a notepad and let's get started. Here's your host, Carolyn Wall.
Welcome, everyone. Happy May. Can you believe it? May is already here, which means that the end of the school year is just around the corner. I know how quickly things start to get busy this time of year. There's always just so much to do. We finished state testing this week, and then it seems like there's something on the schedule every week. There's a lot to celebrate, a lot to finish up, and hopefully a little time to reflect and recharge. Speaking of reflection, if you missed last week's episode, I put out an extra episode in April since there were 5 Tuesdays. I talked about teacher burnout, something that hits especially hard this time of year. It was a really honest but positive conversation about how to recognize burnout and some practical ideas to protect your energy. If you haven't had a chance to listen yet, I definitely encourage you to go back and check it out. I think you'll find it encouraging as we wrap up the year. Today, we're shifting our focus back to the classroom and diving into a topic that often gets overlooked when we talk about reading comprehension, which is student reflection. Now, I know when we think about improving comprehension, we often jump straight to strategies like annotating, summarizing, or identifying theme. And those are important, but those strategies don't work if students aren't thinking about what they're reading. If they're just passively reading, even the best strategies won't help improve comprehension. Reflection gives students the space to pause and process, to ask themselves, what did I just read? What does it mean? Why did the character do that? How do I feel about it? When students take time to reflect, whether through writing, discussion, or even visuals, they're making meaning. They're connecting the dots, forming opinions, and solidifying their understanding. It also builds metacognition, which is just a fancy way of saying that students learn to think about their own thinking. That's a big deal, especially for struggling readers who might be able to decode the words but aren't engaging with the text on a deeper level yet. When students have regular opportunities to reflect, they start to make real progress. They get excited about reading because they're more invested in the story. They start asking for more independent reading days. They're more likely to ask questions, make predictions, and connect with what they're reading. So today, I want to share 2 strategies for weaving reflection into your reading instruction without adding extra grading or prep time to your plate. These are strategies that I use with my own students. They're easy to adapt and powerful in helping students move from passive reading to active comprehension. Strategy 1 is model reflective thinking out loud. Thinking is a skill that has to be taught. While it might seem like thinking is automatic, academic thinking, the kind of thinking that we ask students to do when they're reading and analyzing text, doesn't come naturally to everyone. Just like we model annotation or using context clues, we also need to model reflection. Many students know how to answer questions or recall facts, but reflecting on a text, asking deeper questions, and making personal connections, that requires practice. When we model reflective thinking out loud, we're showing students what it looks and sounds like to think critically about their reading. We make our thinking visible, which gives students something to follow. It's not that students don't know how to think. It's that they often don't know how to apply their thinking in a meaningful, deliberate way when it comes to text. And that's a skill we can teach. When you're modeling, keep it simple. Read a short paragraph aloud and pause. Verbalize your thinking in a natural way, almost like you're letting students eavesdrop on your thought process. For example, you might say, that line makes me wonder if the narrator is actually trustworthy, or this reminds me of something earlier in the story. I'm starting to see a pattern. After modeling a few examples, invite students to try it themselves. Start with a quick turn and talk where they share a thought with a partner, then build up to more independent reflections. Over time, as students become more comfortable, you'll see their reflections becoming deeper and more connected to the text. Reflection is a thinking skill, not just a writing skill. Students need to hear it modeled, see it practiced, and have lots of opportunities to try it before it becomes second nature. Which leads us to strategy number 2, build reflection into your regular reading routine. If we want students to become strong, reflective thinkers, they need regular and consistent practice. Reflection shouldn't feel like a special activity we only pull out once in a while. It needs to be part of the routine of reading, something students expect every time they pick up a book, an article, or even a short story. One way to do this is to plan a few minutes for reflection at the end of every independent reading session. It could be as simple as a one-sentence written response, a quick pair share with a partner, or adding a sticky note to a class reflection wall. The important thing is that it happens regularly, so students start to see reflection as a natural part of the reading process, not an extra task they sometimes do. When students know they're going to reflect after reading, they start reading differently. They pay closer attention, they make connections as they go, they become more active readers because they know they'll be expected to share their thinking. At first, students might only reflect because it's required, and honestly, that's okay. Reflection, like any skill, takes practice. The more consistently we build it into our routine, the more natural it feels for students. Over time, it stops feeling like an extra task and simply becomes part of how they approach reading. And once reflection becomes a habit, it doesn't take up much time at all. A few minutes here and there add up to big gains over time, and you'll find that the depth of student thinking grows right alongside their reading stamina. All right, so now that we've discussed why reflection should be part of your regular routine, let's talk about some practical ways to make it happen. Start simple with peer to peer discussions. Partner or small group reflection talks are a great first step when you're teaching students how to reflect. Talking with a partner gives them a low pressure way to start putting their thoughts into words before they move on to more independent reflection. This works especially well if everyone is reading the same text, like a chapter from a whole class novel or a shared article. It's an easy way to get students talking about reading, hearing different perspectives, and even modeling reflective thinking for each other. After reading a common text, have students turn to a partner or small group and share a quick thought about their reading. You can guide them with simple reflection starters like, I noticed, this part reminded me of, or I think the author wants us to know. I usually have conversation sentence stamps at the table groups to help guide students through knowing what to say and how to keep the conversation going. I'll share a link to those in the show notes if you're interested. These quick conversations help students clarify their thinking and give them a chance to process the text verbally. It also builds important academic conversation skills like listening carefully, responding thoughtfully, and asking good questions without making it feel heavy or formal. As students begin to understand reflection as it relates to reading, you can move them to more independent reflection with their own reading. One of my favorite go-to strategies is a stop and jot. Stop and Jot is one of the easiest ways to keep students actively engaged while they're reading. This is an independent activity, so students can use this with their own choice reading books. A stop and jot is exactly what it sounds like. You ask students to stop at a certain point in their reading and quickly jot down a thought, a question, or a connection. You can keep it super simple. Students can use their regular reading journal, a piece of notebook paper, or even a sticky note. Some teachers like to create a more formal stop and jot template, but honestly, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. The goal is to break up passive reading and create quick moments of reflection. For example, during independent reading, a read aloud or even a shared article build in short pause points. At each pause, prompt students with a quick question to guide their thinking. Some examples might be, what are you picturing right now? What do you think the character will do next? Or how would you react in the same situation? Students quickly jot down their thoughts, just a few words or a sentence, before diving back into the reading. It's a fast, easy way to keep students mentally connected to the text, and over time, it helps them build the habit of checking in with their own thinking as they read. Depending on what you're reading, you could also go back and have students use their stop and jot thinking for a writing piece. It helps alleviate the I didn't think about anything while reading responses you sometimes get. The stop and jot helps students to see their thinking throughout the reading. To keep things fresh and give students a different way to reflect, you might also try using sketch notes instead of writing. Sketch notes follow the same basic idea as stop and jot, but instead of writing words, students draw a quick visual to show their thinking. It doesn't have to be fancy. Simple stick figures, arrows, or symbols work perfectly. The idea is to capture their thoughts in the moment without overthinking it. For example, students might sketch the setting of a scene, draw a character's emotional reaction, or create a symbol to represent an important theme. Just like Stop and Jot, sketch notes can be done quickly on notebook paper, in a reading journal, or even on sticky notes. Students pause, sketch their thoughts, and then return to reading. And for some students, especially visual learners, sketching helps them process and remember the text even better than writing. Mixing in sketch notes from time to time keeps reflection interesting and gives all students different ways to show their understanding without always relying on written responses. As we wrap up today, remember that teaching students to reflect on their reading doesn't have to be complicated. Start small. I encourage you to pick one small reflection opportunity and add it to your next reading lesson. It doesn't have to be anything formal. Even a simple partner talk or a quick sketch can make a real difference in how students connect with what they're reading. All right, that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me. Be sure to check out the show notes if you are looking for more information or resources about including student reflection in your reading routine. In the next episode, we'll continue the conversation where I'll be sharing more ideas for building reflection into your lessons. I hope you'll tune in next time. Until then, thanks for joining me today. As a reminder, a new episode drops every first and third Tuesday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Be sure to visit middleschoolcafe.com to find links to everything mentioned in today's show. Until next time.